Adolf Hitler is a man that needs no introduction. The Nazi dictator who orchestrated the death of well over 6 million Jews while he was leader of Germany's Nazi Party is well remembered in history for his role in the World War II. Spurred by his early poverty, Hitler determinedly amassed a humongous personal fortune for himself, with the bulk of his wealth coming from siphoning off government money and accepting donations from corporations. He also reportedly refused to pay income tax and succeeded in amassing a vast wealth, which some historians estimate to be about $5 billion. With his newfound wealth, the dictator acquired various properties, including an extensive art collection, fine and luxury furnishings, as well as an assorted collection of the most expensive cars. His 1939 Mercedes-Benz 770K Grosser, also known as the Grobber Mercedes, meaning Big Mercedes in German, has since become one of history's most significant cars. It was a large luxury car built by Mercedes-Benz and was the most technologically advanced car of its time. It was Hitler's favorite car and was used several times by the German dictator for rallies across Europe. Some of the dictator's cars have been collected over the years by a number of the world's multi-billionaires, especially Russian oligarchs, and a number of them are presently on display at museums across Europe, America, and Canada. But how many cars were in Hitler's luxury vehicle collection really? And what would possibly be their combined value going by modern valuation? You sure want to watch this video till the very end, as we've detailed stunning details about Hitler's exquisite car collections. Ready? Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome yet again to another sizzling piece of history on your #1 history channel, where we bring you mind-blowing stories about the most remarkable events, landmarks, establishments, and personalities in history. Today's video is especially unique, as we bring you an astoundingly interesting story about perhaps the most enigmatic man to have ever walked this earth. This video is absolutely gonna blow your mind, so keep up. But before we get into details, kindly support us by liking this video, hit the subscribe button and smash that notification bell to receive updates of when we post more intriguing videos like this one. We'd also love to read your opinions in the comments about history's most enigmatic figure. Hitler had several cars, and aside purchasing luxury cars pretty much for fun, the dictator also helped found one of Germany's great car manufacturing companies, the Volkswagen Beetle. Some of Hitler's cars didn't make it to the end of the war, and the whereabouts of some of the few that did have for long remained a mystery. Hitler is reported to have laid the cornerstone of the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg in 1938. With Hitler as the sly politician and Ferdinand Porsche being the genius engineer, Volkswagen Beetle was born as a German car manufacturer. Hitler needed a creative mind to produce his compact car suitable for mass production, and Porsche needed political backing to enable him to build it without financial pressure. The pair realized that their mutual interests aligned and opted to work together. Hitler, who did not have a driver's license at the time, personally approved the prototype of his personal Volkswagen on December 29, 1935. The car was intended not only to be suitable for personal use, but also for transport and particularly military purposes. The success of the car for the Germans, however, only began after the end of World War II. Unfortunately, Hitler himself did not get to drive his own personal and specially made Volkswagen Beetle, as the very first one manufactured rolled off the assembly line in December 1945, shortly after the dictator had reportedly committed suicide following Germany's defeat at the war. The car was rebranded as the Beetle to distance it from the Nazi period and sold nearly 22 million units globally. The hunchbacked car with a boxer engine essentially became a symbol of the German economic miracle and a phenomenal global success. Hitler ardently loved the Mercedes brand and had a few cars specially made for him by the company. Following Hitler's death, a number of his Mercedes cars showed up at auctions every now and then, only to disappear very quickly into a private collection. More recently, several of Hitler's old Mercedes have been put up for sale for millions of dollars. These cars have always commanded very high values at auctions, especially given the history attached to them and the particular fact that they once belonged to Hitler. Since the 1920s, the Nazi Party had always financed Hitler's cars, which he never drove himself as he always had a driver. One of Hitler's drivers, Erich Kempka, once described the day he saw one of Hitler's cars for the very first time. It was in 1932, and Hitler was not yet Reich Chancellor, but he had very expensive and exquisite cars at his disposal, usually of the Mercedes brand. Hitler's first ever Mercedes was reportedly sponsored by a few of his rich friends and a family car dealer. As the party started to grow, Hitler's fleet only continued to get bigger. He reportedly bought another Mercedes car for a then hefty amount of 26,000 Reichsmark in February 1925. That's approximately $14,000 by today's valuation. At the time of his death, Hitler owned several luxury Mercedes cars in his fleet, including six-wheeled off-road Mercedes-Benz W31 Type G4 that was specially built for him, as was his Mercedes-Benz 770 Grosser Offener Tourenwagen. As World War II broke out towards the end of the 1930s, Mercedes-Benz produced all kinds of vehicles for the war, which were mostly trucks, and Hitler had his own unique request as well. He wanted to parade around in a Mercedes-Benz, so the car maker modified a popular truck platform and came up with an open-top armored off-roading truck which had 6 wheels and was the first of its kind. It featured a folding front seat so the dictator could stand and address his followers during parades. It also had space for up to 7 passengers, and since it was to be used during a major war, it came heavily armored. It had bulletproof front glass, reinforced bodywork, and even secret compartments for weapons. The Mercedes-Benz W31 Type G4 also had a lavish interior and had tyres that were specially built to tackle different terrains. Similar versions of the car were likewise built for other generals in the Allied army at Hitler's request, and out of 57 produced in total by the car maker, only 3 remain in their original and authentic condition, with one of the surviving trucks presently housed in a museum in California. The Type G4 was truly an imposing vehicle. It stood 6.2 feet high and was almost 20 feet long thanks to its many wheels. It also had various engine choices under its hood, with the most powerful option being a 5.2-litre inline-8 engine which produced 115 horsepower. One of the surviving cars of this model was last sold over a decade ago in 2009 to an anonymous collector for a whopping $3.3 million. The trucks are essentially historical artifacts and are considered to have become rather priceless more recently. Hitler's Mercedes-Benz 770 Grosser Offener Tourenwagen was built for him much later in 1939, and it was a product of design requirements laid down by Hitler and his primary chauffeur, Officer Erich Kempka. According to supporting documentation, Kempka asked Mercedes engineers to ensure maximum protection for Hitler, especially given the fact that the car was an open tourer. Security measures that were built into the vehicle included a 30mm bullet-resistant laminated glass for the fixed windscreen and detachable side panels. Armor plating was built for the body sides and undercarriage, while a further panel at the rear could be raised or lowered depending upon threat level. The car was first used publicly in October 1939 as part of a large motorcade delivering Hitler to the Old Reich Chancellery in Berlin in front of international media. The specially built Mercedes became Hitler's most used and favorite car in no time. It was also famously used by the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini during a state visit in June 1940, and just 1 month later, Hitler used it for a victory parade following the Nazis' swift defeat of France. The 20-foot-long limousine was last used on parade at the Old Reichstag on May 4, 1941, where Hitler celebrated the defeat of Yugoslavia and Greece. Its latter wartime service remains largely unknown, and following Germany's eventual defeat in 1945, the car was seized by American forces and shipped to the United States in 1946. It was picked up by Tom Austin, a rich tobacco planter from Greenville, Tennessee, and abandoned several years later after it fell into disuse. It would be eventually recognized and collected by 2 renowned car hunters in 1976, who wasted no time restoring it before selling it off to Ralph Engelstad, a popular figure at the time in Las Vegas. The car remained in Engelstad's possession until 2004, when it was sold as part of a 21-car package of significant Mercedes-Benz automobiles. It was resold in 2009 for several million euros, reportedly to an unnamed Russian oligarch. The car is the last of the 8 original W150 770K models made and one of only 5 surviving cars today. Out of the 5, only 3, including this particular car, remain in private hands, with the other 2 being in museums around the world. Hitler's very own Mercedes-Benz 770K, which had his unique number plate, was again put up on the auction block by worldwide auctioneers in Scottsdale only as recently as January 2018. The Super Mercedes received a highest bid of $7 million, but the bid didn't meet the anonymous seller's undisclosed minimum price. Hitler's cars could be recognized in various ways. They all had unique number plates that started with the combination IA148. The Mercedes company knew exactly which serial numbers Hitler's cars had. His cars were also easily recognizable by their luxurious interior. Despite how greatly Hitler has come to be despised globally, his cars continue to command high prices at auctions as well as hold a certain historical value. After his death, the bulk of his cars was simply deployed in the Allied army and weren't handled so carefully. Most of these cars ended up in the scrap heap after just a couple of years. The number of Hitler's cars that survived the war is often difficult to determine, just as the total number of cars he had in all is largely unknown. The precise worth of Hitler's vehicle collection is therefore very difficult to estimate, but some expert car collectors have put the figure to be roundly about $500,000, especially as he had a lot of Mercedes cars, which were very costly cars even at that time.